After being single for 3 years, Daniel Jacobs was looking for his perfect match. Shayna was the lucky charm he was looking for when he finally met her on a blind date. It wasn't the consensus of everyone, however. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any news stories. Daniel's life only seemed to become more difficult since he met Shayna. He could hear them whispering and gossiping. It was enough for him. Daniel didn't have any trouble finding a girl. In the eyes of his friends, he was somewhat of a ladies' man. In spite of this, Daniel's friends became concerned when he announced he was taking a break from dating. It was just that he needed some alone time. Plus, he had been dating someone off and on for 4 years, so he needed a little space. A single night would change everything for him. His brown curly hair and dark blue eyes made him look handsome. After hearing about his hiatus, his friends sprang into action. There was a blind date planned with a beautiful woman. The plan wasn't immediately appealing to Daniel. There was no way he could believe they had set him up behind his back. The man was not happy with the situation. The last thing he wanted after going through a bad breakup was to be with someone. Basically, he just wanted to take care of himself. Without his friend's setup, he would have been well on the way to achieving his goal. As a nice guy, however, he decided to go on the date since, after all, it wasn't his date's fault. In addition to getting a haircut, he also shaved his beard. Making a good first impression was important to him. The least he could do was have fun, even if things didn't work out. He set off for the restaurant where he would meet his mystery date. An uncomfortable feeling of nervousness overtook him. It didn't take Daniel long to become mesmerized by Shayna. In addition to her long flowing hair and bright smile, she was stunningly beautiful. Astonished at his good fortune, he couldn't believe it. The moment he saw her, he fell in love. A warm greeting from Shayna led to an effortless conversation between the two. Her charm and wit captured Daniel's attention. She caught his attention right away, and he couldn't help but feel a connection to her. The more Daniel and Shayna talked, the more he realized how similar they were. Both enjoyed hiking, traveling, and trying new foods. The two of them loved each other's company and laughed at the same jokes. Having found someone so compatible with his interests and who made him feel comfortable was a major blessing for Daniel. Shayna was upfront about her appearance from the beginning. Although she informed Daniel of the consequences of his actions, she was still able to see his interest in the matter. She was very happy to know that despite her challenges, he remained willing to spend time with her. It was a great pleasure to meet Shayna, and he knew he would love to see her again. Though Daniel was happy, he couldn't ignore whispers and gossip. While out with Shayna, he noticed that people stared at them. Their relationship was even criticized by some rude comments. Shayna looked uncomfortable to Daniel, and he couldn't comprehend how cruel people could be. Despite Daniel's hurt and frustration, he couldn't imagine how she felt. People were being so judgmental that he couldn't understand why. Shayna had a special place in his heart. He could not ignore societal expectations and norms. There was a lot on his mind. Is dating Shayna the right thing to do? In the end, only time would tell. Daniel tried to ignore the judgments and focused on building his relationship with Shayna. They continued to go on dates, and their bond grew stronger with each passing day. Shayna, too, was happy spending more time with him despite people's cruelty towards them. But they decided to put it behind them and move on. After all, she was used to it. Shayna had been hurt by people's comments all her life, but she was impressed by Daniel's unwavering support and acceptance of her as she was. She admired his courage to stand up against societal norms and be with her despite the gossip. She was starting to think she had found someone really unique and special. As time went on, Daniel and Shayna fell deeply in love with each other. They shared their dreams, fears, and hope. They built a beautiful connection that went beyond physical appearances. Daniel couldn't imagine his life without Shayna. She had become his confidant, his best friend, and his rock. He knew that he had found someone truly special, and he was determined to make their relationship work, no matter what. His friends were equally impressed with his relationship. They didn't think he would fall for someone like Shayna. They could see he was head over heels in love with her. So, of course, they gave them their stamp of approval. Daniel couldn't have been happier. But then, trouble reared its ugly head again. They defended their relationship and shut down any negative comments. They knew how happy Daniel was with Shayna and supported his decision wholeheartedly. Although it became very difficult at times, Daniel and Shayna stuck through it and endured all the criticism that was hurled at them. They weren't going to let people ruin their happiness. Daniel and Shayna started making plans for their future together. They talked about traveling the world, building a home, and starting a family. They were excited about their life together and the adventures that lay ahead. Daniel was overjoyed to have found someone who brought so much happiness into his life. But he was also experiencing so much hate from people that he felt like he wanted to move to an isolated part of the world. He knew that Shayna was the one he wanted to spend the rest of his life with, and he was determined to make her his forever. But he also had his doubts. Most of the hate was directed at him, and he just couldn't understand how people could be so narrow-minded. Was Shayna really worth all the hate he was receiving? One day, Shayna invited Daniel to meet her family. He was nervous but excited to finally meet the people who had raised the woman he loved. When he arrived at Shayna's home, he was greeted with warmth and love. He could see where Shayna got her kind-hearted nature from. However, he still had lingering doubts at the back of his mind. He couldn't help but wonder if he was doing the right thing. He loved her but knew that they would be facing all these challenges all through their lives. Would people ever get used to the fact that they were different from other couples? Daniel looked at his girlfriend. She was beautiful to him, but other people looked at them like they were circus freaks. Despite the challenges they faced, Daniel and Shayna refused to let the gossip and judgments of others affect their relationship. They learned to rise above the negativity and focus on their love for each other. They continued to go on dates, travel together, and make memories. They didn't let other people's opinions dictate their happiness. But it wasn't long before Daniel faced a serious confrontation. As Daniel and Shayna left a grocery store one day, a man and woman hurled insults at them. They taunted them all the way to their car, and Shayna became upset. Daniel tried his best not to entertain the couple, but as soon as he saw the tears running down Shayna's face, he knew he had to step in and protect her. They kept shouting at them and saying the most unimaginable things. Daniel knew that they were mostly directed toward him. "What's wrong with you, man? How can you date someone like that? You must be one of those creeps." Daniel couldn't believe what he was hearing. He was hurt but mostly angry. He wanted to make them pay for what they were saying. "Mind your own business," was all Daniel could muster, and he hastily got into the car and drove off. He could see how the couple laughed at them through the rearview mirror. How much more of this would they have to endure? Shayna could see how embarrassed and hurt Daniel was. She knew this relationship would probably end up like all the rest. Shayna had come to the conclusion that it was time to let Daniel go. She couldn't let him suffer because of what she looked like. It wasn't fair on him. Through the tears, she had hoped that she had actually found her one true love, but things weren't faring too well, and she thought it would be better to just call it quits. Daniel was taken aback by Shayna's request. He loved her, and he didn't want to give up on their relationship because of people's narrow-mindedness and insults. He promised her that they would get through it, and he wanted to give their relationship a chance. He wasn't prepared to give up just yet. Shayna's eyes lit up. She felt lucky to have Daniel in her life. But things didn't get any easier for Daniel and Shayna. In fact, it got worse on some days, which led them to stay indoors most of the time. Daniel just wanted to protect Shayna as best he could, but nothing would prepare them for what was coming. As they settled down to watch a movie, they heard a loud knock at the door. Shayna's eyes grew wide. Who on earth was at their door at this time of the night? They weren't expecting anyone. Daniel got up to look, and he was confused by what he saw. They became even more worried when they could see blue and red lights flashing outside. It looked like it was the police, and they were banging impatiently on the door. "Open up, it's the police. We need to talk to you." When he opened the door, a police officer was pointing a gun at him. He instinctively lifted his hands. "You're under arrest for dating a minor." Daniel's world came crashing down. "Little girl, please step away. This is for your own good." But Shayna pushed her way through. She needed to stop them before it was too late. "I'm not a little girl. I'm 24 years old, and I have pituitary dwarfism, aka growth hormone deficiency. Now please let him go." The officers uncuffed Daniel and apologized for the arrest. They apparently were tipped off by a couple who thought Shayna was in danger. Shayna and Daniel were relieved that nothing serious had happened. They knew their lives would never be normal, but Daniel was willing to take a chance to be with the love of his life. Disclaimer: in order to protect the privacy of those depicted, some names, locations, and identifying characteristics have been changed and are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblances to actual events or places or persons living or dead are entirely coincidental.